Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so pumped you're here because today is the first episode where we are officially Get Organized at Work. So I wanted to change the podcast name from Leadership Unveiled because let's be honest, Unveiled is a really hard name to spell and nobody is searching for it. Get Organized at Work really speaks to the fact that I love to teach on simple systems to help you get organized, be proactive at work, and help you with your career progression and accelerate your career growth. So that's why we're renaming it. You probably already noticed because you probably saw the cover art has changed. So thank you for being here on my journey as I rebrand. It's going to be more of the same stuff, just elevated and focused. And I'm just excited for what 2025 has to offer. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. It's all about getting organized and taking charge in 2025. And speaking of that, if you haven't snagged my free 30 ways to get organized at work in the new year PDF, you definitely should check it out. I have it in my free podcast community. It was called Leadership Unveiled Podcast Community, and now it is Get Organized at Work Podcast Community. The link is in the show notes. Whether you're listening on YouTube, it's in the description or in the show notes of the podcast. People have been joining a lot this week. I know people are excited, ready to get organized for the new year. And they're like, okay, I need the PDF. So it's 30 ways plus 5 bonus ways in my free community. So go there and check it out. Also, there's going to be more content coming in there where I'm going to be giving tutorials on some of the things that I show, not just talking you through how to do things on the podcast, but actually video tutorials of me showing you how to use the different systems. So you definitely want to be in there. All right. So today's episode is called Don't Wait for Permission, Get Organized and Take Charge in 2025. At least that's the working title. So we'll see what it ends up being when we go live. But here's something I want to talk about. Where most people fail at work, if you want to use that word, is they're winging it every day. They say they're busy, overwhelmed, they have so much to do, but they don't have a plan. They show up every day and just kind of decide in the moment what they're going to do. So does this sound familiar? If so, you're not alone, but you don't have to stay stuck in that cycle. So do you ever feel like you're drowning in tasks, but you're actually never making progress? Are you constantly putting out fires only to realize the important stuff is still sitting on your to-do list? What if I told you there's a simple system to take control of your day and it doesn't require your boss's permission or your leader's permission to implement? So this episode is the first of a 3-part series that's I designed to help you stop winging it and start taking charge of your daily work, your projects, and your communication. So today, we're going to be tackling the foundation of getting your daily work out of your head and onto paper. Or in this case, I'm going to show you how to use it in OneNote because that's what I love to use. I know most organizations have Microsoft, and so OneNote is a great place to keep track of your tasks. This is one of the tutorials I'm going to have in the free group. So if you're listening to the podcast, the tutorial is there. So go ahead and join the free community. But if you don't have OneNote, you can do this in any other program where you can digitally keep track of your tasks and check them off or cross them out. So let's get started. The first part of this episode, I want to talk about why getting your work out on paper matters. So winging it might feel like you're being flexible, right? Like you're like, oh yeah, I'm just being agile. But in reality, it's costing you so much time. It's costing you clarity and even credibility. Because without a plan, you're in reactive mode instead of leading. So I want you to be leading ahead and proactive. And when you are that way, when you are organized, you feel confident. You're like, okay, I am the expert. You don't have that imposter syndrome setting in. So, how often do you feel like your day gets away from you because you're too busy putting out fires? And what would it feel like at the end of the day, knowing you tackled your top priorities instead of spinning your wheels? So, the first step, here's the solution, is getting everything out of your head and into a system. Because when you write things down, you create clarity and control. And with tools like OneNote, you can take it a step further by categorizing and scheduling your work with maximum efficiency. So for me, I love putting things down in OneNote because then I can move those tasks around, see where they feel, keep track of them. Nothing gets forgotten. And I don't know how many of you are like me, but I always overestimate how much I can remember, right? Like if it's a really important, what seems like important and exciting or big, huge, or even like nuanced thing that I've got to do, I'm like, oh, that's so different. I'm never going to forget that. But if I don't write it down, probably a day later, I'm like, there was that thing that I was going to do and I can't remember it. So that's why we need to get everything down so no task is left behind. So there's so many benefits. I'm just so excited for you to be able to be proactive and confident. And when we talk about communication, this getting everything on paper is going to help you elevate your communication with your boss, your leader, so that they know what's going on. Because when you're able to articulate that clearly, it's one of the signs that you are really good at your work. All right. So the next step here, the next thing I want to share with you is the system. Like, actually, okay, I know I need to write stuff down, but how do I get it onto paper? So here's my approach. You can tweak it for what works for you. But I'm just going to share what I do and what helps me kind of reset. So we're at the end of the year. There's probably lots of random tasks hanging out that you're like, oh, I need to do that, or oh, I'm not sure if I need to do that, or gosh, I feel like I could be doing this differently. So what you want to do is start with a brain dump. And this is just by opening something like OneNote and creating a page or a journal section titled brain dump, or I like to call mine running to-do list. It's just a place for me. I guess I like to think of it as my working page, the thing that I'm looking at every day, and then I'm moving things from there and categorizing it after that. So first you're going to be brain dumping kind of one big, large time when it's your first time. You're going to dump any projects that are on your mind that you want to do that are sort of hanging out there. You want to dump recurring tasks that are kind of in your mind that maybe aren't habits or automatic, but you're like, oh, I need to be doing this more often and I keep forgetting. Anything that's clouding your mind that it's kind of like on the back burner or hanging out there. I want you to write it down, everything you need to do, big projects, small reminders, all of it. And one really cool tip in OneNote that I'll show you in the tutorial is you can use the tags, and the to-do tag or control 4 is actually a square box. It's like a checkbox, and you can actually physically check the box when you complete the task. I love doing this for like a little dopamine hit. It allows you to check the box, and also because you've got it typed out, you can actually physically cross this off using the strike through font. So I love that. So use the checkmark box feature in OneNote to turn each item into a task that you can track or, log and keep track of. Now, since you're doing this one big time right now, eventually the goal is to make this a habit where you spend like 5 to 10 minutes every day, sort of like reflecting and thinking and dumping everything out that you need to do or things that have come up that are on your mind. This is also a great time to get in the habit of transferring items from different areas into your OneNote. So you're going to be thinking of your OneNote as a common source of truth, the one place where everything you need to do is. So if you're like, what was that thing? You go to that one spot. So for me, I love to use my Leader Standard workbook or even an Amazon Basics, just plain Jane, boring grid dot notebook when I'm taking notes in meetings, and I will write down my to-dos when I'm, in meetings. And when the meeting's over, I'll either like star my action items or things I want to follow up on, circle them really big, or if I have a highlighter around, highlight them. And then that's great because writing things down for me helps me commit those items to memory. But then I need to actually be able to look at that stuff every day to remind myself I need to do the things. So I take time at the end of my day or the beginning of my next day and transfer those items I've written in my notebook into my OneNote as a typed checkbox item. So there's two parts of this. One, a big, huge brain dump the first time you do it. And second, developing the habit to add these items to your list every day from your notebook or Post-it notes or wherever you are keeping these items. So that's step one, the brain dump. Step two is categorizing your tasks with tags or sections. So once your brain dump's complete, you want to organize your tasks so that you can prioritize them and sort of know what they are. Chances are, if it's your first time, you've got like projects, recurring items, things that you're not sure if you need to do or someone else needs to do them. So here's how I start out categorizing my items. And then you can take it a step further or change or adapt as you need. So the first category I have is like high priority tasks or things that I know need to get done sooner rather than later. They're things that have sort of a deadline or a made up deadline in my mind that are things that I would like done in a relatively short amount of time. So for me, that's probably like in the next week or two. And so you can decide, is it something that needs your attention now? And maybe it needs your attention to sort of figure out when the thing's getting done, not actually doing the thing, but high priority, urgent / important tasks that need your attention to sort of sift through almost immediately. The second category is more like the routine tasks, or you can split these into daily or recurring items. So these might be items that they're not necessarily projects or like things that you check off once and they're done. They're things that have to happen multiple times that are stuck in your brain that you need to put somewhere. So you're like, okay, I want these written down. So then later we're going to talk about scheduling them in your calendar. So routine tasks or daily or recurring items could be your other bucket. And the third bucket I have is your delegatable tasks. I don't know, is delegatable the word? Things that you want somebody else to handle. And it's not that you don't want to do the item, it could be, but also maybe it's just something that you're not sure is fitting for you, or you want to offer someone a growth opportunity. These are things that if you have a question mark as to if you should be doing them, put them in your delegatable tasks category. And I have another episode on how to determine who to delegate to. So I will link that in the description or the show notes for you. But my method is called the test method. It really just determines if there's somebody who is teachable and excited. Maybe it's their jam, they are independent, they can follow up on it, all of those things. I will link that in the show notes so you can check that out. But one of the biggest ways to tell if something can or should be delegated is if somebody else were to do this task with, let's say, minimal support from you, maybe some guidance, some clarity available for questions, can they do it 80% as good as you could do it? Or you could say, if there was a standard for how high the person should be able to do that task or how they should accomplish it, can they do it 80% to the standard? And if that's a yes, that's something that I would consider delegating. If you even have a question mark, like, this feels like something that I'm always the bottleneck for, or maybe it's not quite aligned with my role, or somebody else is just better at that thing. Think about putting it in the delegatable bucket so that you can take time and think about it and really determine, is this something that can and should only be done by me and my expertise or my role? Or is this something I should teach someone else to do and hand off with support? Okay, so in OneNote, you can use other tags to label these categories so you can easily filter and focus on what matters most to you. You can also just type in, category 1, category 2, 3, whatever they're named, and then move those tasks with the checkbox underneath. So they're sort of in assigned lists. That way, it's not just one giant list. It's like segmented into the different buckets. So this is really going to help you. All right. So once you have all of your tasks brain dumped and categorized-ish, right? You can still move them around. Step 3 is to time block your day in your calendar. So you want to take your categorized tasks and schedule them in your calendar. and use recurring time blocks for routine tasks, things that are you need to do daily or weekly, whatever the recurring stuff. And then if you have a high priority task, maybe block extra time or separate time called focused work for that project. So something that I'm doing differently this year is having two calendars in Outlook. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on this as well. So a lot of companies have Outlook. Maybe you're using Google or something like that. It's the same where you've got your main calendar, but then you're able to make other calendars as well. So I made a brand new calendar for myself. I titled it 2025 KFA New Way because I want to elevate how I show up every day and do things a little bit differently. So in the past, my calendar just had generic focus time on it for some of my time blocks for like strategic planning and such. And that worked for me for a while. But now my work has just been changing and I've been doing things differently. And I want to be more intentional with exactly what I want to work on. But I don't necessarily want those on my main calendar just yet until I kind of figure out my systems. And I don't know if I want everyone to see these time blocks either. So it's a calendar that I created that I can toggle on and off to overlay on top of my normal calendar that only I can see. And if I want to, I can move it to my main calendar. So my time block buckets, I guess, are as follows. And I hope you can like gain some insight and sort of figure out if these might be interesting to you. But one of my blocks is mentorship. So I really want to offer mentorship for some of my people for their growth and development, for some technical things I'm working on, and even just leadership things. But also I need mentorship. So I have a block once a week to spend time working on a mentorship activity. Another block I have is stakeholder meeting prep. And then I also have stakeholder meeting as a block. So I want to be really intentional this year about networking and getting out to talking to other managers, program managers, and directors of other areas that I serve in my position in healthcare. And so I've been just reaching out to different service lines to say like, hey, I know my lab intersects with your department or whatnot. I would really love more consistent time to talk with you, learn about your strategy, give you my data, all of that. And so people have been saying, yes, let's meet, let's schedule recurring meetings. So I have time blocked in my calendar for stakeholder meetings, as well as time to prepare for meetings, like if I want to gather data or need to send an email or something like that. I also have a block for development. So this is for my own personal development. And it could be maybe I want to spend time developing others, but that probably fall into mentorship. I'm not sure yet. But something I want to be intentional about this year is reading more articles, making time for learning, and attending continuing education and conferences. So I actually block time for development into my calendar. I also really want to write more articles. There was an article I wrote a few years back on lost and missing specimens, and it was in Medical Lab Management magazine. And I thought that was so cool. And the public or the editor, I guess you would say, he reached out a few times for articles for me, and I overpromised and underdelivered. I just did not have time. And I thought I really want to get some articles going in magazines or on my blog. And so I want to spend time writing for my work to further the transfusion committee or leadership, the transfusion community or my leadership community. So I have a time block for writing. Maybe I'll publish some papers this year. I think that would be really cool. I also have time blocks for strategic projects. So things that are going to move the needle on my goals for the year and the goals for the organization. I have time for research. So again, sort of like reading articles and diving into new technologies. I have a time block for community engagement. So I really want to be intentional with our blood supplier this year and other organizations that support work in the cancer and cellular therapies fields, because that's what I'm in for my work. And I just think it'd be cool to partner with other organizations. And so I need time to actually physically do that or get out and volunteer or read up on that. So community engagement is a time block. And then I have communication. So time for writing, reading, delivering communication. I think communication is so important. So time for that. Going to Gemba is another one, seeing where the work is done, visiting with my teams, hearing about their barriers so I can help with that. And then data review. So times for weekly time to look at my key performance metrics, see how I'm doing, update my dashboard. So these might be super specific and maybe not apply to you, or maybe you can take some ideas from what I have. Maybe there's too many to start with. But for me, I've sort of created a plan for my year and like a longer term strategy. And those are my focus areas. So those are my examples of where my task projects and things fall into. And so time block your calendar, schedule meetings with yourself for an hour, maybe do 50, 55 minutes to give you a little bit of like white space or time to wrap up and have time between meetings. Don't overbook yourself. Give yourself time for, interruptions and to move tasks around if you don't accomplish them in that day. Just start small, maybe 1 or 2 time blocks for intentionality as you begin the year. And then when you get more advanced like me, you can get really specialized and in tune with those time blocks. And it's just fun. You get to experiment. So we'll go deeper into leader standard work on this podcast and in our free community. So I will link my previous episodes and YouTube tutorials on leader standard work, but this is sort of an easy gateway to brain dumping your tasks and putting them in your calendar so that you can not miss any tasks. But yeah, if you want to listen to those older episodes, definitely check those out. All right. And then step 4 is creating a daily review habit. So at the end of the day, review your OneNote tasks. You can check off or strike through the tasks you've completed, move unfinished tasks to the next day on your calendar, or highlight the items that you're going to do next. Sometimes if I have a really large list in each category, at the beginning of the day, I'll just take like a yellow highlighter in OneNote and highlight the task like, okay, for sure today, I'm getting this one done. Because if I could leave work happy, you can call it a leave happy task. If I want to leave work happy today, then I get this task done and I'm like, I rocked it. Okay. So, and spend time looking ahead at your calendar for the next day to prepare. All right. So basically, the steps are brain dump your tasks, categorize your tasks, time block your day in your calendar, and create a daily review habit. All right. So before we wrap up here, I just wanted to address some common challenges that people say or have expressed to me when thinking about brain dumping and planning and how that you can overcome them. So challenge number 1 is I don't have time to plan. I hear that a lot. I don't have time to plan. I'm just doing what I need to get done. It's coming to me. I'm figuring it out as I go. And what I would like to say to that is planning in OneNote takes just a few minutes, 5 minutes, but it saves you hours of wasted time when you're reacting to things all day. It saves you from analysis paralysis. It saves you from just like getting an item in front of you and thinking, oh, I'll just work on that one, but never moving the needle on the highly visible, highly important tasks and goals that are going to propel your career forward. You will get stuck in the monotony if you do not plan. So my tip for you is just start small, brain dump your task for today, and prioritize 1 or 2. Practicing intentionality around that is going to help you be more disciplined to stick to your plan and adjust accordingly as needed instead of reacting to whatever fire comes your way. Challenge number 2 that I hear people say is my list is too long and overwhelming. And I understand, and I have been there, and I will be there someday again. And the counter that I would say to that is just focus on those top 1 to 3 priorities for the day. Use your OneNote tags to filter out what's not urgent. And what I would do actually is I would take all of those things that I need immediate attention to get done. That's at the top of my OneNote. And the other items I have to scroll to see. So it's sort of an engineering situation where it's like, put things in front of you that matter most that need to get done, those focus priorities, because then you'll spend your attention there. The other items can stay lower. If one of those other items pops up, becomes urgent, move it into a different category. You can move your tasks from category to category, make them visible, star them, whatever you need to do. but filter out what's not urgent by sticking to those top things. The other tip in this is breaking your big tasks into smaller steps and scheduling them over multiple days. I don't know about y'all, but because of social media, because of the fast-paced nature of our life that we live, we cannot focus for that long. So an hour is really pushing it unless you get into like flow and focus mode. Give yourself time to process things, to think through your ideas. You can schedule little bits of each thing throughout the week. It doesn't need to be completed start to finish. In fact, you might have a better project if you've iterated a few times. Once you get sort of your blanket task or idea done, come back to it the next day, you'll have an even better idea and you'll level it up. So just break your tasks into smaller steps and schedule them over multiple days. And the third main challenge or opposition I get to planning is I forget to check my list. And what I would say to that is sync your OneNote with your phone and set a daily reminder to review it. Or I would love for you to practice habit stacking. If you don't like to sync with your phone, which I do because you can just quickly check your phone between meetings or whatever and always kind of remind yourself what you need to do. But if you don't like that, try habit stacking. So for example, when I open my computer to work, I do not open my Outlook email. I don't have it automatically popping up. But I do have OneNote automatically opening when I turn on my computer. And so it's sort of a habit of when I open my computer, I go to OneNote first. I do not go to Outlook. Another habit could be pairing looking at your list with something you're already doing. So if you sit down to work and you've got your cup of coffee in your hand, take a second and drink your coffee while you open OneNote. So pair it with something you're already doing. Maybe you log on to Microsoft Teams to say a chat to your team like, hey, good morning, everyone. When you do that, you pop open OneNote and check your list. So tie it to an existing habit like checking your Teams or drinking your morning coffee. It will become a habit over time once you start to do that. Forgetting to check your list, I know how it feels. You just jump into the day and you put out all the fires and you're exhausted. So if you are listening to this and you're looking for a new way, try to change your habit of not checking your list to a habit of checking it with something else. All right. So if you're still with me, thank you so much. We are going to wrap up the episode here, and I have some key points to recap for you and a call to action. So first thing, here are the key points. Stop winging it. Get your daily work out of your head and into OneNote. Use the steps, brain dump, categorize, time block, and review, and leverage the tools in your applications like OneNote with the checkmark boxes, tags, recurring calendar events to stay on top of your day. You don't have to do it all manually. You don't have to remember. Automate. It's going to make it easier for you. Questions I want to leave with you. What's one thing you can do today to stop winging it and start taking control of your daily work? I don't know if that hit you in the gut, but oof, that could be a hard one. And then 2, how would your work life change if you had a system that helped you or made you feel like you were in charge instead of overwhelmed? When we can do things that help us feel like we're in control, we no longer feel overwhelmed. We feel confident. We accelerate our career growth. That is hard to say. Career growth. We help elevate ourselves and others on our team, and we make more things possible. Like, what would that feel like? How would that change your every single day if your hair was not on fire? If your hair was on fire, but you knew what to tackle first, right? So for the next episode, we will dive into organizing our projects so you can make real progress on both big goals without feeling overwhelmed, as well as keeping up with our daily tasks. So what I want you to do today or the next time you're in your office or working, spend 5 minutes brain dumping your tasks into OneNote. Use the checkmark box feature and tags to organize them, then schedule one task as a time block in your calendar. And I want you to share this experience with me. I would love to hear how it works for you. I would love to see it in the wall on our free community, which is linked in the show notes. or in the description. So hop on over there. If you don't want to join the group, which I will encourage you to do, you can always email it to me. I'd love to see a picture of your success or hear how it goes. My email is kayla@kfaconsulting.org. So thank you so much for listening. Remember, you don't need permission to start making your work life better. The power is in your hands. So start with getting your daily work out on paper and into OneNote. All right, everybody, take care, and I will see you next week for another episode. Bye-bye.